What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Turn on the Jets podcast. Sorry we're starting a little bit late tonight. Had a few technical difficulties. I think we worked through them all. Tonight we're going to be joined by Corey Griffin of NBC Sports, also writes over at the Jets blog. We appeared over there earlier this week to preview the Jets offensive line. And in a couple minutes we'll have Dalbin Osorio and Rogers of our site as well. Got the invite right now to Corey. He should be on in a couple minutes, and then we're going to dive into the cornerback situation. And then we'll also talk a little bit about John Idzik and some of the criticism of him and whether that's fair or not. And then we'll go through the Giants game, answer a few questions you guys sent in on Twitter, and also preview a few more things for Thursday's preseason finale against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm just going to resend this one more time over to Corey. And here he is right now. Right on cue. Corey, great timing.
If anything, it's great timing.
I apologize for the early technical difficulties. Despite working at a YouTube MCN full-time, I still struggle enormously with Google Plus Hangouts, which is why I hold up notebook paper with marker for things I want to say or for our screen caps. Like today's question was, where was Dimitri? Obviously. And as you can see, we don't have the toolbox thing yet, but we're working with what we have. Corey, right off the top, what were your first thoughts when you heard this story today about Dimitri Patterson randomly going AWOL the last 2 days because we can never have a quiet, peaceful Sunday to just watch Simpsons episodes all day as Jet fans?
At first, I thought he might have just missed the jug handle and not known how to turn around. My first thought was a couple things. It was that I didn't think John Idzik had done enough in the offseason, and we can get into that in a little bit. The other thing that concerned me is where was he possibly could have gone on, because I don't remember hearing anything about substance issues. The Jets said it wasn't legally related. So he just went missing, and no one had heard from him since Friday before the game. So it was more concerning from a personal point of view before even getting into the actual football of it.
Yeah, it's been like the second weird story in as many weeks. Obviously, the thing with Jalen Saunders, which sounds like maybe he had some type of seizure and they still can't figure out medically what happened with him, but he is expected to play on Thursday. And now we get this story with Patterson where he didn't show up to the game and he wasn't at the facility, and now it sounds like he will be back at the facility tomorrow to sort out whatever happened. Do you think he's still going to make the final 53-man roster, or do you think that his spot could actually be in jeopardy now because of what happened?
I don't think you miss a game entirely and go AWOL for 2 days without your spot being in jeopardy, especially in the Idzik regime. That being said, they are extremely tight at that position, as we all know. So it would not surprise me if Idzik decided to keep him with possibly a one-game suspension. Maybe because that week one game against the Raiders, you really don't need to worry about their passing game all that much. So maybe you suspend him for week one, you let Milner sit out week one to get healthy, and you hope you have both of them back for week two. I don't think they can afford to cut him. I think cutting him would be a mistake because of their depth. But then again, it is Idzik, so he doesn't really play around.
I agree. I also want to welcome in Dalbin Osorio. Dalbin, thank you for joining us as you do every week. Say hi to Corey. We're just talking about the cornerback situation. Get your mic on right now. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
You know?
There you go. There you go.
There you go. How's it going?
Corey, on the cornerback position as a whole, I guess a two-part question. What do you think about the current depth chart? How do you think the playing time will be divided up early in the season? Let's assume Milner's back week 2 or week 3. He doesn't play against Oakland. How do you think the bulk of the season will look at cornerback? And what is your criticism of how Idzik kind of handled the position throughout the offseason? Because I think if there's one area that it's fair to criticize him, and honestly, our site has been pretty pro Idzik since he's taken over. But I do think it's very fair to question with where the Jets are at cornerback right now. So maybe speak to your concerns about how they ended up here as well.
Well, I think you're going to look at week one. Week 1, week 2, whatever, like you said, D. Milner will be back early on in the season, so I don't look at that spot as a concern. There's a concern that the injury might linger if he rushes back, so I think the Jets will be patient there. The other spot, I'm expecting a mixed bag. I'm expecting rotations. I'm expecting situational play. If the Jets go up against two physical wide receivers, you might see Darren Walls play more. If there's a second wide receiver who's a little smaller and quicker, you might see a guy like Langster in the spot. Allen will probably get some more play when they go up against some of the tougher, bigger wide receivers, particularly against Minnesota with Cordarrelle Patterson. I could see Allen drawing that matchup. My issue with it in hindsight, and at the time I understood not overpaying Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. They obviously chased Vontae Davis. They were linked with Verrett for a little while. But my concern was that everyone outside of Milner was a risk, whether it was Dimitri Patterson, Dexter McDougal, Darren Walls, Ellis Langster. Yes, there were players there. There were players there with potential. There are guys who can fit roles. You have 3 safeties who can play. But the big issue for me was that all of them were risks and none of them were proven players. And when you go into a season with one proven player at a position that's possibly the second most important position on the field outside of quarterback in today's NFL, you're setting yourself up for failure if you deal with even a little bit of injury or a little bit of problems in the training camp and in preseason. And the Jets got hit with the worst case scenario, and they weren't prepared for it.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair way to look at it. I think with what my understanding is that the Jets believed internally that they had a very good shot at getting Vontae Davis. Clearly they didn't. I think he just basically leveraged them for more money, went back to Indianapolis, and I guess they were not comfortable guaranteeing the amount of money to Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie that the Giants did for understandable reasons. That being said, it appears that the plan B was going to be, Dimitri Patterson, we like what he did last year. He could be the placeholder until Dexter McDougal's ready, hopefully by the end of the season. And that was a risky way to go. Patterson's had injury concerns throughout his career. He's played well when he's been on the field, but never really been able to stay healthy. And McDougal, coming off a year where he missed 10 games because of his shoulder injury. Obviously, he didn't re-injure his shoulder. He tore his ACL, unfortunately. And it's a shame because he was having a good camp and looked early in the preseason. But like you said, it was kind of the worst-case scenario, and now the Jets are going to be forced to get creative. I think there's going to be times the Jets are going to play a lot of 3 safety looks and get Antonio Allen on the field with DeJuan Landry and Calvin Pryor. I think Darren Walls, he's flashed well at times. He's never shown he could start for a full 16-game season. Neither could Ellis Langster. So there's going to be some rough spots throughout the season. Hopefully Milner is healthy and this is not a lingering issue, or it could be pretty ugly there on the outside. And I think it will be on Rex to compensate and find other ways to kind of scheme and coach around the Jets' shortcoming at corner, whether that's more 3 safety looks, whether that's putting his cornerbacks on an island less, particularly Kyle Wilson, who's going to have to play in the slot despite being really nothing short of putrid this preseason, as I think we've all seen. I just worry, because it just looks like the book on the Jets is that if Rex is going to bring 8 and he's going to leave his other 3 guys at man coverage, just throw at Wilson. And when you have a team like the Giants are going to put a guy like Cruz in the slot, they're just going to keep picking on him over and over again. So hopefully Rex is able to kind of adjust around that. Dalbin, let's bring you in here real quick. How do you think, early in the season, do you think it's going to be Walls or Langster playing opposite of Milner, or do you think it's going to be kind of more of a split? Who has impressed you more out of Walls and Langster? Because both of them kind of got their shot at starting action, and even we saw LeGuan Lewis got more of an extended look against the Giants.
Right. I think Walls looked fine. My concern with him is that he got a bit of an extended look last year, and he didn't look that good. And so I'd be concerned to play him for extended periods of time. Langster looked fine, and I know Cole was on the pod last week and the week before advocating for Langster to get more playing time. So Langster Island might become a legit thing now, right?
Maybe not an island, just a capable starter will take it.
Right. I just, I don't think it's going to matter so much who's opposite him as much as it's going to be how Rex schemes for it, because I think you're going to see, and I think I said this last week, you're going to see him flood the field with DBs and try and play a lot of zone and not really play much man on the outside, because Milner's really the only guy that he can trust one-on-one with the receiver and hope for some adequate level of success. You can't trust Wilson. And again, Santonio Holmes matched up against Kyle Wilson when Chicago comes into MetLife is going to be a bad matchup. That's a bad matchup for Kyle Wilson. So you wonder with guys like that, you wonder if it's going to be much more schematic. It's not really going to matter much who's on the other side, because I think you're going to see Allen, you're going to see Milner, you're going to see Pryor and Landry play the most out of the 4 DBs, and then the hope is that Patterson, now that he's back from being AWOL, can replace Wilson in the slot. Because Wilson, you're right, Joe. Wilson has been absolutely horrible. I've never seen a DB go from bad to worse in such a short time than him. He was bad last year. He's worse this year, and I wish they'd cut him, to tell you the truth. But to answer your question, I think it's going to be more Allen on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I just think with Wilson's familiarity with the system, he's obviously going to end up sticking around on the roster spot. But it's just been very frustrating to watch in the preseason. You kind of hope that a guy who's that experienced would kind of take another step in the right direction. I would say he was probably better last year than he was the year before. So you're kind of hoping he could kind of keep developing, but we certainly haven't seen that in the preseason. Corey, before we let you go, let's get your kind of general expectation or prediction for the season. I know it's tough to always throw a win total out there, even 2 weeks before the season. But when you're talking about this team, when people ask you, what do you expect record-wise? Is this a team who could compete for a wild card spot? What's your normal response? What's your expectation? Is this an 8-9 win team this year?
Well, funny you should ask. Shameless plug alert. My AFC preview will be coming up on NBCSports.com this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday, so you can check out all my predictions there. But the Jets part was honestly the most difficult thing to write because you look at them through 3 preseason games, you look at them through the specter of last year and the talent that's on this roster compared to where they were 12 months ago. They're obviously a better team. They're a deeper team. They're a more talented team. They're a more well-rounded team. I think they're one of the best coached teams in the league. That being said, I struggle to see this as more than an 8-win team. And not a bad thing because they overachieved, in my opinion, to get to 8 wins last year. They saved Rex's job. But they are a better team that might end up with a similar win total, but look a lot better doing it. They have a brutal stretch of the schedule coming right off the bat, which could put them in trouble. The Packers, the Bears, the Lions, Chargers, Broncos, and Patriots from week 2 to week 7 is a very difficult stretch. And I think that as Jex figures out how to use his secondary and as he figures out how to use his defense with these issues at cornerback, they're going to struggle a bit early on while finding their sea legs later on in the season and possibly getting to 8 wins. 9 is possible. I think 10 is way out of range, but 9 is possible if Geno plays well, the running game performs as expected, and Rex can figure it out in the secondary sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Very fair. I mean, I think unless something radically changes in the next 12 days, I'll probably be looking at a 9-7 type prediction, but certainly not out of the question to say that this team could be a better-looking 8-8 than they were last year. I think obviously a lot of it's going to depend on Geno Smith and how they manage to navigate through that somewhat rough patch early in the season where they're facing a lot of high-powered offenses with question marks in their secondary. Corey, I really appreciate you taking the time for joining us and dealing with our 5 minutes of technical difficulties in the beginning. I think we had that smoothed out now. Just give the people a quick shout out where they can follow all your work so we make sure everyone who's watching doesn't miss a thing in the next few weeks.
Well, thanks. It was good to come on. I know you came on the Jets Blog podcast this week, so happy to come on yours. The Jets Blog podcast, check it out on iTunes, SoundCloud, thejetsblog.com, all that stuff. Also on Twitter, at Corey Griffin, NBC. And you can find my work this season coming up at NBCSports.com. I'll have an NFL column every week, plus a ton of preview content coming out at the end of this week. So look for that, and get at me on Twitter if you want to yell at me and tell me I'm stupid, or follow me because you want to keep me in check or something like that. But thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the show, fellas.
Thanks, man. All right, and it looks like while that was going on, Connor Rogers made it in on time. We appreciate you getting in. Connor, how's it going? I like the backwards non-fitted hat.
Good, man. Yeah, no, switching it up from DL style.
Very nice, very nice. All right, so we got a decent amount of questions that I want to work through eventually. Obviously, want to start throwing the notebook up on the screen as well with some hashtags at some point, but let's go through some quick reactions for the game Saturday. Initial reaction was very, very pleased, particularly in the first half. I haven't seen a Jets offense in the preseason string together that many chunk big plays in a long time. And, just looking through the box score after and looking through the play-by-play, just 17-yard by Ivory, 18-yard run by Ivory, 23-yard catch by Ivory. Chris Johnson, 17-yard screen, 16-yard screen. Decker had a 27-yard catch. Amara had a 15-yard catch. It was just these big chunk plays, and I think the most important takeaway, and I led with the article on this that I wrote about the game on Saturday, is that Geno Smith played terrific. He looked like a confident NFL quarterback who knew his system, was decisive about when to run. He was throwing the football down the field. He was 9 for 14, and Decker dropped a touchdown pass on him. And really, Sudfeld, you could argue, might have dropped another touchdown pass on him. So he was really accurate. I think he might have really only missed about one throw on the early drive when he missed Decker on a third down. But really looked like night and day compared to what we saw from him last summer, and looked a lot like the guy we saw last December, if not an improved version of that, because he was just throwing the football better and has better weapons around him. And we really, last night or Saturday was a nice chance for the Jets to kind of showcase all the talent they had offensively in the offseason with Decker, with Amaro, with Chris Johnson, and even going back to Idzik's first offseason with Chris Ivory. Connor, what was your initial reaction to what you saw from the Jets against the Giants? Was that a positive preseason outing for the team?
That was the best preseason outing I've seen from them in the Geno Smith era by far. When you look at all the really good offenses in the NFL right now, there's one thing that they all have in common, and that's variety. If you look at the box scores, you always go in and you check the targets and you see guys, and it's always spread around. Yeah, there's going to be guys on those teams that are superstars, like Demaryius Thomas on the Broncos, Jimmy Graham on the Saints. Even Jordy Nelson has kind of stepped into that tier over the last year with the Packers. But if you look at those offenses, there's always guys that will be the 3-catch-per-game guys, but find their way into the end zone. And I'm starting to think the Jets are slowly building into that. They're probably one more premier-type wide receiver away from it. I think they need somebody lined up out wide across from Decker to get there, which is fine. They don't need that this year. Understand, Rome wasn't built in a day, and they're going to be okay with that. It's really nice to see them have a tight end, though, in Amaro that is a big target across the middle. Defensive backs really don't want to hit him high. They go low at him. He's a load to take down the field. And one thing you notice with him right now is he's snagging everything with his hands. And, the knock on him coming in, through camp was that the guy doesn't have good hands. But when you watched him in college, that wasn't really the case. So it seems like a lot of the media that jumped on that didn't really know anything about him coming out of Texas Tech and just kind of saw, hey, the kid is a superstar in training camp from the first 3 days of practice. He can't catch. That's not the case at all. So it's really nice to see the run game is just phenomenal. The change of pace looked like the Giants' defense just could not keep up with it. And what's interesting is with the Jets' run game is usually they have success in the second half, not the first half, because they tire out defenses when they do have success with the run game. This time in the first half, Chris Johnson on the outside, Chris Ivory on the inside. It was really tough for them to keep up. And I think if they played 4 quarters with the starters, I think the Jets would have won that game easily by 2 touchdowns. So you have to like what you see with the variety on offense, and you have to like what you see with Geno Smith.
Dalvin, let's flip over to the defense. I think, the pass rush, we kind of saw it finally woke up a little bit this preseason with Jason Babin and Quentin Coples. The Jets did allow a touchdown for the Giants in the 2-minute drill at the end of the half. And, their backups, particularly Brandon Dixon, got picked on a little bit by Nassib. But overall, what did you think about the Jets' defense? How'd the first unit look against a pretty shaky Giants offense, which it's very weird to think the Jets are going to have maybe a much better offense than the Giants. It's been a long time since that happened. What did you think about the Jets' defense?
I thought the defensive line won the battle in the trenches, and I was interested to see that, especially after Jason Pierre-Paul said that he doesn't think that the Jets have the best defensive line in New York. Muhammad Wilkerson, Sheldon Richardson, Damon Harrison, Quentin Coples, Jason Babin proved that, yes, the Jets do have the best defensive line in football. So defensive line abused one-on-one matchups. They just took advantage of the Giants' defensive line. The linebackers were great in space. I thought they were fine. Antonio Allen, before he went out with the concussion, I thought he was fine too. Eli was like 1 of 7 at one point. They made Eli uncomfortable. And you see Eli running for his life with Mo Wilkerson and Quentin Coples and Jason Babin chasing him. One big thing too was, and this is something that Rex had said that they've stressed this year, was the ability to cause turnovers, right? And you saw Babin with the strip sack. You saw Wilkerson with the strip. And Calvin Pryor, who Khan said this last week, and so I paid a little bit more attention to it this week. He was all over the ball, even coming in on ball carriers, coming in on the tight ends. You found him around the ball, wherever that was. And so I think the defense has a chance to be better than it was last year. And the hope is that now with the offense giving them much more support, they won't have to lean on the defense as much. But the defense has all the makings to be a very dominant defense up front.
Let's move into the roster cuts and what we think this final 53 is going to look like. The final preseason games on Thursday against the Eagles. Mark Sanchez is not going to play for the Eagles. Sorry, Jet fans. Mike Vick's probably going to play 3 or 4 plays for the Jets. And it's going to be a lot of bad. What was that, Theo?
I'm really sad about Mark Sanchez not playing.
I know.
He might be a Ram by then.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame to hear about what happened with Sam Bradford, but apparently I read something that Sanchez has like no interest in going to St. Louis. Just
No interest whatsoever.
He was much better in the Eagles' offense. Let him get coached up there for a year or two instead of going to St. Louis. And
That's because of Schottenheimer, definitely.
Yeah.
Poor Shotty.
Yeah.
So the Jets today released Jacoby Ford and Ross-I Dowling. If you've been reading our site, that's not a surprise to us. We've been telling you for 3 months, and this is like a jerky thing to do, but we told you so about Jacoby Ford. He wasn't making the team. There was no reason for him to make the team. I don't know why people thought he was going to make the team. So good for the Jets for cutting him early so maybe he could catch on somewhere else. And I got to say, I just patted myself on the back for Ford. Let's pat Connor on the back for Mr.
The dream.
who appears to have a roster spot. Rex talking about him as a kick returner today, and really what pushes him over the top is that he's on the other coverage units. He's on kickoff, he's on punt. Jacoby Ford doesn't do that, and Stephen Hill doesn't do that, and even Greg Salas doesn't do that. So that's why when you're looking at receivers who are going to make the Jets roster, he might really even be a lock at this point. So Connor, take a little victory lap. Let's talk about the most popular special teams gunner wide receiver on turn on the Jets.
Well, obviously I'm psyched because I've loved this guy from the second they signed him. Didn't start playing football till very late. I believe his high school didn't have a football team. So he's been bouncing around the league over the last year and a half, I believe, just because he runs a blazing 40-yard dash, and he's one of those guys that doesn't just do it in shorts. You watch him on the field. I actually broke down a play last year against Carolina when he smoked Captain Munnerlyn on a vertical route. I mean, Munnerlyn was like 3 or 4 yards behind him. Geno Smith just got pressured and missed him on the deep ball. So the kid has a lot of talent, and the greatest thing you see with this guy is that he probably doesn't warrant a roster spot for being a project at wide receiver because there's so many guys like that in the league. So what he did in the offseason was got better at everything else on special teams. If you watch the tape of this preseason, he's not being blocked on punt coverages. He's running right around his guy down the sideline and is always there, either forcing a fair catch, and has actually made 2.5 tackles already covering punts and kicks. And he's a lethal kick returner when the kicks come up short. We saw him take it out against the Giants. He got to about the 27-yard line, but that was from the end zone, and he flies out. Kind of like Antonio Cromartie when he had to return kicks to the Jets when they were desperate. That's kind of what Hakeem looks like when he takes it out of the end zone. So it's really exciting. I love him as a 5th or 6th wideout on the depth chart just because he's going to have to develop some kind of routes. I think his hands, we don't really know much about his hands right now. He does make catches in practice, but that's a totally different ballpark as we've seen from Stephen Hill. But the bottom line is this guy deserved a roster spot, worked his ass off to get it because he does everything on special teams that none of those bottom-of-the-tier wide receivers do. So it was really nice to see, and I'm really excited, obviously, on this one.
Well, then, what do you think when you're looking at the offensive depth chart in terms of who's going to stick? I threw out kind of a quick 53-man roster prediction today. Just looking at it offensively, how many running backs, how many receivers, how many quarterbacks? I mean, just kind of quick hits. Like, who do you think is going to stick? Who do you think is going to get sent home? After the preseason finale on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, well, real quick, Hakeem looks like Azahir Hakeem. That's who he looks like when he's returning kicks, man.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why that is who I see when he took that return out of the end zone to the 27. He reminded me of Azahir Hakeem. So yes, Con, you were right. I still think they carry 4 running backs. I still think Richardson makes it. I think they carry 6. I think Stephen Hill's going to get cut, barring some amazing performance on Thursday. I think the Jets. Remember, he got an extended look on the other game, and he just didn't do anything with it. He had one slant where Geno hit him, and it's a catch he should have made. Cromartie didn't really I thought Cromartie got his hands on it. When you look back on it, it hit Hill right where it should have been. Hill should have caught it. So I think they carry 6 receivers. I think the 3 tight ends are a lock: Amaro, Cumberland, and Studfeld. I think they're set. The thing that Joe, you had reported this earlier, was that the hope is that they can waive Taj Boyd after Thursday to put him on the practice squad, and that they're leaning towards carrying 3 quarterbacks. I think that's interesting because I didn't expect them to carry 3. I thought they would carry Geno and Vic, and Curley would be the emergency on game days. And again, Sims doesn't necessarily have to be active. But I'm interested. I found that interesting that they would carry him. But I think you're looking at 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and you're looking at 8 offensive linemen because O'Day's flexibility and his versatility and being able to play both guard spots and tackle gives them the luxury of not having to carry 9 offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's something we put out today. And what we were able to hear is that the Jets, kind of regardless of what happens this Thursday, are planning to release Taj Boyd and then hope to sign him back to the practice squad. So they'll kind of hopefully just sneak him through waivers and then get him back for further development. And that's what we heard that was concrete. And then what it kind of surprised me is that, the same sources said that they're really leaning on keeping 3 quarterbacks. And I agree with you. It kind of, caught me off guard. I didn't think, they were going to go with 3. I didn't think Sims was going to stick. But Sims has played well this preseason. And I think there might be concern that Vic could get banged up, particularly if they use him in a Wildcat situation. Maybe they don't want to get caught shorthanded there. So it'll be interesting to see. It sounds like Sims has a pretty good chance to stick. I'm sure a good performance on Thursday could further cement that. But with Boyd, and I don't think this is surprising to anybody, I mean, we saw how he did not look ready at all when he had his chance against the Bengals. The Jets are going to hope that they can get him on the practice squad. I don't think there's going to be a ton of people battling for him on the waiver wire, but we'll see what happens after next Thursday. With the offensive depth chart, when I put this prediction together, I didn't include Greg Salas on it, and he seems like the kind of guy that when he does get released, or if he does get released, Jets, Twitter, Jet fans are going to go insane, maybe have a quick ride over it. And Salas has played great all summer, and there's a very valid argument to be made that he merits a roster spot. He certainly has earned one over Stephen Hill, and I think the question kind of comes, are the Jets going to keep 6 receivers? Because the top 5 are kind of locked in, right? It's going to be Decker, it's going to be Curley, it's going to be Nelson, it's going to be Saunders now that we know he could play. And then Akeem is kind of, yes, he's a 5th receiver, but he's not on the teams to be a receiver as much. It's more to be a kick returner and a gunner. And then are you going to keep 6th guy with Salas? And is there more value in keeping a 6th receiver? How much is he going to play? When is he going to be active? Or is it worth keeping it at another spot? So I'm all about the Salas hype train. I think he's played very well this preseason. He caught a touchdown last week against the Giants. But him making the roster, in my mind, isn't a question of, did he earn a spot? Or did the Jets want to carry 6 receivers? When you look at this situation, do you think there's any chance that Stephen Hill sticks on this roster? And what do you think is going to happen with Greg Salas?
It's kind of crazy right now. I think the biggest news that nobody's talking about is that since it seems like Akeem's a lock, doesn't it kind of seem like what you just brought up is the bigger issue at hand? Is Stephen Hill finally gone? Because it doesn't really matter what he does this week because he's shown you nothing with the 2 guys that would most likely take the snaps at quarterback this year. And that's the problem. And it's also facing the upper-level competition. I also don't think they came into the season really using him right. I not to make an excuse for him because he's done absolutely nothing, but I think they should have known what they have at hand. The guy's not a number 2 target, and in the preseason they keep using him as a number 2 target across from Decker. I would have liked to see more 4-wide packages and kind of him as line him up a little different and see if he can get at least downfield and be a 4th target. But, I mean, we're probably not going to get to see that, and even if he could do that this week, I don't really see how he makes this roster right now because he has brought absolutely nothing to the table. And the same can be said for Kyle Wilson, by the way, just to throw another name in there that shows absolutely nothing on defense and nothing on special teams. Neither guy deserves a roster spot right now, and it's a shame to say that, Hill never panned out in New York, but I just don't see what he brings to the table anymore.
Yeah, the thing with Wilson, and we're not hesitant to be critical of him, but he was all right at times last year. But this preseason, I don't know how anyone could say he's been anything but absolutely atrocious. I'm not exaggerating when I'm telling you that every time he's been targeted this preseason has either been a completion or a penalty. It's just like quarterbacks are not missing when they go at him. So, he's always been inconsistent. He's never really made plays. But he would have a few patches here where he put together some solid coverage. He'd be good with tackling. He's missed tackles this preseason. He's picked up penalties on special teams and on defense. So he's going to make the team just because of the numbers game, but he has not earned a roster spot. And with Hill, again, like you said, it's even really a performance thing at this point. It's just where does he even fit on the roster? Why are you keeping Stephen Hill to be your 5th or 6th receiver? He doesn't play special teams. He has not played well in the preseason. It's not like he's played well enough where you say, hey, this guy, we can't ignore him. He has to get a spot. This wasn't a John Idzik pick. Rex Ryan, we know, wasn't a fan of the pick when they took him. So I think fans thought that there's just no way you could cut this guy because he's Stephen Hill and he was a 2nd-round pick. I don't know if that plays. This isn't the same GM who took him, and the head coach isn't crazy about him. So I'm sure whoever the Jets decide to cut, there'll be people fighting about it and upset about it. And then remembering that all these guys who are on the bubble, some of them are going to make it, some of them are going to not. Even if Greg Salas makes it, best case scenario, he catches, 15, 20 passes this season? These guys aren't necessarily the
barring injuries, yeah.
Yeah, they're not, unless barring injuries. So really it's going to be more about Geno Smith, the offensive line, Decker, Curley, Amaro. Amaro, who really might have wildly pipped Jeff Cumberland this preseason because he's held his own as a blocker, and when he's asked to be an inline tight end, I don't know if Cumberland's coming back to playing 40 or 50 snaps a game with how Amaro played. But let's dive into some questions. We got some good ones tonight that I kind of want to rip through, and then I definitely want to hit on a few more Twitter accounts before we wrap up. We got a little time because we started late, so Google's going to let us run past 8:15, which is all right. I know you guys might have to watch the VMAs tonight or something. But a couple minutes. So,
can't miss the Beyonce performance, man.
Of course. That's what my girlfriend's been saying all day. All right, so we'll go rapid fire on these questions, just like 30 seconds. We got at JJoyJets. Is the Jets' second or third cornerback currently on the roster? I would say yes. I don't think they're going to trade or sign somebody who's going to come in and play immediate reps on the outside. I think in terms of if you're looking at their number 2 and 3 on who's going to be on the outside besides Milner, and number 3 who's going to be their slot guy, I think at least at the beginning of the year, the number 2 guy will probably be Walls or Langster. I would probably lean towards it being Walls now. It's just a personal preference. And then the slot will be Wilson to start the year, particularly now since Patterson went off the reservation.
Yeah. No.
Yes. Who?
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's Milner. I think it's Allen. I think it's Wilson in the slot. Walls probably gets the first opportunity opposite of Milner if they move Allen back to safety. But yeah, Patterson's disappearing makes it a little weird. But yeah, I think the second and third cornerbacks are on the roster for sure.
Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really tough. The problem I have is I just don't think a guy can get acclimated into Rex's system that fast right now. Maybe halfway through the season we see somebody different that's picked up this week and slowly works their way in. But you got to hope Dimitri Patterson, who won the Mike Goodson Award today, is the guy in the slot.
I love the Mike Goodson. I love the Jets have had 2 players just randomly disappear off the face of the earth within
And I got something good for you right now, Joe, just to reinforce your Kyle Wilson point.
Let's hear it.
Kyle Wilson has been targeted 10 times this preseason. He's given up 9 catches for 154 yards, 64 yards after the catch, a touchdown, and 152.1 quarterback rating.
Oh my God! Could you write those down and hold it up on the screen?
I don't even think that's. I really do think I could do better. I actually think so.
That's astounding. I mean, we're gonna have to type those out and get that written somewhere because I just that's
Nolan might be able to do better in this slot.
A 5th-year player, insane. Anyway,
that's mind blowing. Next
question from Randall McMurphy says, "Could you guesstimate how the targets will be divided up between the 3 tight ends, barring injury?" If you're looking at just targets, I think Amaro will probably lead the team and lead the 3 of them in targets and maybe end up being the team's second leading receiver in terms of receptions and yards behind Decker. I'll probably be battling Curley for that because I think he's looked great this preseason. And when they played him at Y, which they did a lot against the Bengals and a lot again against the Giants, he was able to hold his own. So probably not crazy to think Amaro could be a 40, 45 catch guy this year, maybe like 500, 550 yards receiving. Cumberland, I would say, will be next after that, maybe a 30-catch guy. And then Sudfeld, I think, is going to be really a focus in the red zone. You've seen them try to kind of force-feed him in the red zone this preseason. He's came up empty-handed. He's almost came down with a few plays, but I don't think you would expect Sudfeld to have more than 20-ish catches. I do think he could be the kind of guy who has like 22 catches and like 4 or 5 touchdowns, though, because I think he'll be a big part of the red zone package. Dalbin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is why whoever starts opposite Decker. This is why whoever starts opposite Decker isn't really that important because Amaro's going to get most of the targets anyway. He's going to be the team's second leading receiver. I think you're looking at. I think 60 catches isn't out of the realm of possibility for him. 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think Cumberland's going to be used much to the way that he was used last year in conjunction with Kellen Winslow. And Sudfeld, I think, is going to be a red zone target, like you said, Joe. I think it could be possible to see him have 10 catches, 4 of them are touchdowns.
Connor, what do you think about the tight end stats this year, particularly Amaro?
I'm going to stick to my guns and go with what I had a couple months ago. I said Amaro 550 yards. I do think he'll have a lot of those like 10 to 12-yard catches across the middle of the field. I'd like to see around maybe 6 touchdowns for him. But I really think it's going to be real. Him and Cumberland are going to probably split it even, and then Sudfeld will get thrown in there in the red zone. So I think that's pretty fair.
Next question is from Chris Ivy Jr. at Spyro Kush. He says, out of the remaining 11 remaining active draft picks, who do you think makes the roster? I'll just stick to what I wrote today. I think Dozier makes the roster as the 8th lineman. Obviously, Pryor and Amaro are going to stick. I did put Ick and Riley on the roster, and then I said Boyd, George, Dixon, and Quincy will go to the practice squad, and the other 2 are on IR. I don't think I missed anybody there. Dalbin, what do you think?
Same thing. I think Riley makes it. I think IK makes it. I think George is headed to the practice squad. Dixon as well. Saunders as well. Same ones that you picked. I agree with those.
Connor?
Yeah, the only thing I'll change, and it's kind of bold, I think Dixon finds his way onto the roster. Maybe not now, but maybe some point in the season he will. But that's the only guy that maybe could make it. But everything else, you guys are on point with.
Bold, Connor. Bold.
Bold. We continue to get this question a lot, and this is from Israel Dismas, and he says, can you name basically a free agent corner that you think the Jets will sign after roster cuts? And I don't really have a specific name. I think they're going to look to the rosters and maybe Cleveland and Kansas City, maybe somebody who shakes for you there. But again, I wouldn't anticipate this person or this guy, being someone who's going to come in and play major reps. It's going to have to be internal roster answers. It looks like Dalbin's on the move right now through a parking lot, which is fascinating. Dalbin moves the Connor first, and then they'll throw it back to Dalbin. What do you think, Connor? Any veteran names?
Wait, can you say if we're bringing any in?
Yeah, could you leave?
I answer this question like 4 times a day, and I'm not even kidding. I mean, I understand why people are concerned, so it's fair to ask that every day. There's no one out there right now. I'm just being honest. I mean, cornerback is a pretty valuable position in the league. If you have anybody that's half decent on the roster, you just hold on to them, unless they're making insane money. But I don't see any veterans being brought in this late.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah, I don't think any team is cutting legit back 2 weeks before the season starts. So I don't think there's veteran reinforcements coming in.
I gotta tell you, I ran through all the paper in my notebook. There's actually not even my notebook. It's Laura's nice notebook that she uses for interviews, and I just ripped through all the pages in it. I have to get a new one for next week. Let's go back around the horn in terms of Twitter follows for Jet fans. Obviously, what's always entertaining during these games, preseason games, regular season games, is all the constant people who are going back and forth debating about what they're seeing. It's always an active time. So a fan or two or a football account or two that Jet fans should throw on their follow list before the game Thursday and before Week 1. Dalbin, you want to start us off?
Sure. Kevin Lewis at KLew24. He has been an advocate for cutting Stephen Hill for the last year, I feel like. So when it happens, he would be the guy to follow for an invite to a free Stephen Hill party. So he's pretty good. Corey Griffin, who we just had on, I mean, not sucking up to him, but he's a pretty good follow as well. And the third one I would say is ESPN Bob. So he's much more optimistic than the rest of these dudes like Simony and all of them. And so I think he's a really good follow as well.
Connor?
All right, I'll give out 2 tonight. I'll do one guy that covers the team, and I'll do one fan that I really like talking to on Twitter lately about the Jets. The guy that covers the team is Dom Cosentino, who is just absolutely fantastic. By far and away the best beat writer we have right now. Has been writing just awesome work at NJ.com. So that's at Dom Cosentino, DOMCOSENTINO. So definitely give Dom a follow. The other guy I have that's a fan is the guy that asked the question earlier, Jay Joy Jets. He always brings really good questions, intelligent talk, and so those are the 2 guys I got tonight.
Awesome. I'll just make sure we shout out Green Lantern Jed, who's always been a big fan of the site. Actually helped us find Connor a few years back, and when we were looking for new writers, and always I wish we got to see more Jets writing from him because he always has really unique insights and good kind of long form articles. So at Green Lantern Jet. And then also, Chris Lepresti has been a great follow since he's been a lot more active around the Jets, and he's been getting a couple more spots on 660 talking about the team. I still call it 660, even though I don't know if it's still technically 660, but at C. Lepresti, good follow. I definitely agree with what you said about Dom. He's been really good to follow as well. Came over from Deadspin and kind of adds a more unique tone to the the Jets beat and the way they follow the team. So we're basically almost there, guys. We got one more preseason game on Thursday. This is again like the backup bowl, a game where we've seen like Jesse Chatham get like 41 carries for like 200 yards, or Brooks Bollinger go crazy, or like
It's the Danny Woodhead game.
It's the Danny Woodhead game. The Danny Woodhead game, which has given like every Jet fan endless irrational fear of releasing anybody, like because they can never release anybody to turn to the next Woodhead.
They're gonna come back and haunt us. Come back and haunt us.
Even though it hasn't happened with Ryan Spadola or Joe McKnight or Braylon Edwards or the list of other people. So what is just one thing that you want to see out of Thursday? Just one player, one anything. Dalbin, go ahead.
Health. Because even though it's the backup bowl on Thursday, some of the guys are going to be asked to contribute this year, whether on special teams or in sub packages, and so I'd like everybody to come out healthy. I know Vic might play like maybe one series. I'd appreciate if Rex just played him one play and got him out of there, because the last thing you need is some overzealous defensive lineman trying to make the team, diving at his ankles, and then suddenly he tears his ACL, and your backup quarterback position is the same that it was last year. So just for everybody to come out healthy, not one specific player.
Connor, did the mic fade? We have like one technical outage through the podcast. It's going to be one day. Oh wait, there he is. Go ahead, Connor. Wait, there's Connor. Then it's weird because I see him in the lower third, but when I click,
but he's not moving.
Yeah, it's good. That usually means the laptop died.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Everyone just needs to stay healthy. It'll be fun to watch some of the rookies, Ick and Riley in particular on defense. Although I think both those guys are probably safe with the roster spot, but just stay healthy. I like to see maybe Quincy get some targets down the field on offense. He really has gotten a ton of opportunities this preseason. So let's look at it.
One of the things that I've found that's actually really interesting, and I know you touched on this earlier, the Jets are deep, man. Like there's talent going on IR, and there's obviously like players that are hurt, but this is by far one of the deepest rosters Rex has had on both sides of the ball, not just defense. And so like Quincy, Shaq, Jalen, like you're talking about three really good young receivers that could probably contribute going forward. And so I know Shaq's on IR, but with Quincy and Jalen, like you'd like to get them as much reps as possible this year, and then they can step into very important roles next year. So I'm excited to see that. So there you go. I answered your question.
Dolb, are you like outside of like a subway in the city right now? I mean,
I am at Secaucus Junction train station, Joe. I am live from Secaucus Junction.
Dedication and technology is a world we live in. Dio, I appreciate you finding a way to make it work, and
no problem.
I think Connor was able to hop back on. So Connor, technology up and running. One thing you want to see from the game on Thursday?
I want to see Sims defend his Brett Ratliff All Gunslinger Award. Definitely. No, in all honesty, I really like what I've seen from Sims because he's always had the arm strength and the talent's been there. And now it looks like he understands the offense. And I know Marty likes him a lot. So it's really nice to see if the Jets might have their backup quarterback for 2015 or maybe even this year if Vic, God forbid, we don't even want to talk about that. But I like to see Sims continue his improved play to show consistency. And I really don't know who's going to play right now. That's the only problem. Obviously, Leash IK, and I'll be happy.
I like that. All right, guys, before we wrap up, one guess. Where was Dimitri? Where was he the last 2 days? I'm going to say he ended up in the hatch from the island on Lost. That's always my go-to thing when a Jet player disappears. He's down there hitting the 48, 15, 16, 23, 42. But, Dog, what's your guess?
I think he was with Tupac. I think he was with Tupac. Suge got shot this weekend. I think that's where he was at.
Yeah, right? It's crazy. Connor, where do you think Dimitri was?
He's the first person to get swept up by the Rapture.
I think we lost.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm all for the pop culture references with the TV. Him and Mike Goodson join the guilty remnant. They're out smoking somewhere.
Yeah, oh God.
There we go.
Gentlemen, I appreciate it. We'll continue to work through technical difficulties. I appreciate everyone watching and subscribing. We're up to 227 subscribers, and we'll be making sure to give away some stuff throughout the season. to build that number up. I appreciate the views are going up each week, so we'll stay with it. We should have a highlight tape from the running backs out this week on the site as well. Thank you, Kevin Barr, for all your great work on the channel so far. And let's just get to the regular season healthy. Signing off.
Yeah, buddy.
TOJ.
See you.